we have next example here. Okay, this is the equation is a quadratic again. Most of the SAT question, this A usually is 1. It's not number there, okay? So either positive or negative. Now this one here is look like this. So what is the y-intercept? Right away you know it's -8, okay? So let's draw a graph. So we know that y-intercept is somewhere -8 for now, we don't know. Okay, now how do you find x-intercept? This is how you do it. You go factor this. We have a lessons about how to factor this, so I quickly cover it. So you pick -8, and you know -4 multiplied by 2 will give you -8, and then -4 plus 2 add together will give you -2, which is the middle number. That's how you factor, okay? You pull the last number, find the two factors, and then add these factors. This number should be equal to the middle one. So this is perfect. So your factor will be x minus 4 and x plus 2. X plus 2. So if you open up, you should get this, okay? So this tells me the x-intercept. That means x is equal to +4 or x is equal to -2 from this one. Okay, so that's the x-intercept here. So if you go to here, +4 probably is here, and -2. Okay, so if you draw your graph probably look like this. Agree? Because the A is a positive number, so I know it's open up. It will not be opening down. And then next, I know that's -8, so it goes through there. -8. Okay, so and then I find out the intercept by doing this. Okay, now one more things they might ask is what is the maximum or minimum? Okay, and here we only have the minimum. So you know that this from here to here is about 6 units, right? 4 here, 2 units, 2 here, 6 units. So the middle will be 3 units. So maybe it should be 1 here because there are 3 here, 3 here. So if you do this, this should be your minimum value. So this is how you find it. Put 1 here, okay? You should get minimum value. So let's try. Y equal to 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 8. So you got 1 minus 10. So which is -9. So put here, your minimum is at -9, okay? It's at 1 and -9. Now, why do we need to have so many details? Because in your SAT question, they might ask any of the things, and you have the knowledge how this is represented in a graph, okay? So this is the knowledge that you need to know. Okay, so we have learned this graph representing this function, right? Now, the important things you learn is C, tell you the y-intercept. And then the A will, if it's positive, opening up. If it's negative, opening down. And then you know the x-intercept by factoring, like that, okay? That's your x-intercept. And then you know the maximum or minimum by going into the middle of the 2x, okay? X-intercept. That's how you find all this value. Next, we want to talk about, it's the domain and range, okay? Many students find this difficult. Actually, it's not hard. This is how you do it. Domain is basically the horizontal boundary, okay? The lowest boundary of x on the left-hand side and the boundary of x on the right-hand side. Because this graph is going, keep going and keep going, right? So there's no limit to the right and there's no limit to the left. In this case, the domain is just x belong to real number. Actually, for all the quadratic equation, this is the domain. You don't even need to worry because all the graphs look like that. So there's no left and right boundary. Now for range, range means the boundary on the top and boundary at the bottom. And here we do have a boundary. This is the boundary. There's nothing on this graph is smaller than -9. We find out this is -9, right? And everything, there's no top boundary. Okay? So everything should be y greater than or equal to -9. That's your range. Okay? Yeah. That's how you do domain and range. Let's go see some example. We have another very typical kind of SAT question here. They give you one equation. Say this is the general equation. And if A and C are positive, which graph here could be the graph of this function f? I give you a few minutes to think about what we learned and look at the graphs. Now, remember what is the significance about A? A here, if it's positive, it's telling me the graph go up. If it's negative, the graph go down. So right away I will eliminate this one here. I will eliminate this one here, the one that's going down, and the one going down. Okay? Now, we also learned C. What is C again? If you remember from what we just learned, C is the y-intercept. Remember that. Okay? When this and this is 0, your intercept is C. So look at this 2 graph here, this 3 graph here. Which one has C positive? This one is negative. The y-intercept is negative here, right? This one is negative. Only this one is the positive. And it's also satisfied that A is positive. So this should be your answer. Okay? Good. Let's see next example. Okay, let's see next example here. Okay, they say if y is this quadratic equation here, and this is the graph, and which of the following could be p minus q? And this is your p here, and this is your q. They didn't give you what is p, what is q, so how do you tell which one is right? Remember what we learned before? You are able to find out the x-intercept by factoring. So let's do it. X squared minus 4x minus 21. I take minus 21 and factor it out is 3 minus 7. The reason I pick minus 7 because when you add together it gives you minus 4. So I have x plus 3 and x minus 7. I set them equal 0, which will give you x-intercept. And x is equal to minus 3, and x is equal to positive 7. Right? Now, they want p minus q, so this is your p is minus 3, your q is 7. So 3 minus 7 give you minus 10. So right away, this is the answer. Okay? Let's see next example. Okay, we have one more SAT type of question, graph question. Okay, if they give you a bunch of graph here, and they say they want fx smaller than 0. That means the part of the graph smaller than 0 in between minus 3 and 3. Okay, so which graph will give you that? So that means the graph that's greater than 0, smaller than 0 in between these two values. So because they're in between, we can go through each one to see, okay? Now, say, let's look at this graph first, okay? For this graph, excuse me, for fx to be smaller than 0, that means the graph smaller than 0, is this part here, right? All this part here is fx smaller than 0. So that means if I have some value here, my answer should be x smaller than a number, a negative number. I don't care what number is it, say -1 for now. For this one, look like that. And let's look at this one. And none of this graph is smaller than 0. They want something smaller than 0. No part of it is smaller than 0. So none. So you don't even have the value. So it cannot be this one either. Let's look at this one. For this graph to be smaller than 0 is this part here, anything in between here, or anything after this, right? Okay, and anything in between here and here, they are greater than 0. They are fx greater than 0. And for anything smaller than this number here, they are greater than 0 again. So this is the part that's smaller than 0. All this here and all this here. So this is not right description of that, correct? Now, let's look at this one here. For it to be smaller than 0, which part is it in this graph? Is anything after this value here? Or anything there? So that means x has to be greater than 3, or x greater than a number, say 3, or smaller than a number. Let's look at this one here. Anything that's smaller than, any graph of this graph smaller than 0 will be this part here, correct? Say this is a number. So it could be a 3 or -3. So that means for this graph here, x is in between, in order to be smaller than 0, x should be smaller than +3 and greater than -3. Okay? So it's in, this is the only one is true for that. Okay? So this is about quadratic equation and its graph, and it's important. You can do more practice from the book. It's a very good book for review all your math skills, and want you to try to get as many questions correct as possible, okay? Because you have learned so many skills. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.